Once again, we're joined by a man who may be the weirdest, the scariest, the spookiest person in all of New England, Jeff Belanger, who was and are you still one of the hosts of New England Legends? You guys are still cranking that out, right?
We've been doing that for 8 years now, every week, never missed a week.
Yeah, and a writer of several books. We're going to talk about a new one here in a bit. But Jeff Belanger, if you don't know, New England Legends is a podcast about all the weird and scary things that happen in New England. And you stick strictly to the New England states. And then you've been on, you've done television work with that, written books about it. And my first question to you before we get into the new book is that at some point, aren't you going to, it's amazing you've done that for 8 years. At some point, aren't you going to run out of stories, or does the weirdness just keep happening and you're just trying to keep up as it goes along?
So, like 7 years ago, I thought I would run out. And then something sort of magical happened. We got a big enough audience that people started emailing in like every week saying, hey, I grew up in this little town. Have you ever heard of this story? And you go, no, I haven't. And then so now it's crowdsourced. I don't do any work at all anymore, Mike. I just answer emails and go, oh, this is fantastic. That's our next one. There's countless more. I think if I lived 10 lifetimes, I couldn't get it all.
Every town has that house.
Yep.
And it's like, and it's run down maybe, or there's a story and people, avoid the area or whatever. Every town has one of those houses. Some old man lives there alone, or some old woman, or, a strange family or whatever it is. In fact, in Natick, I moved into a house like that. It was run down. One old guy had lived there for 20 years alone, only lived in 2 rooms. People had died in the house. And so my mother said, oh, that sounds like a place I'd like to buy. So she bought it with my stepfather, and they fixed it up in a beautiful house and stuff. But yes, indeed, a couple of people had died in it and everything. And while the old guy was living there, he didn't do anything to the house, so it looked like a haunted house. But yeah, every place has a house or a spot in the woods or a cemetery, and there's always a story.
This explains why you grew up so normal.
Right? Right.
You were doomed from the start.
It was the voices. It was always the voices.
There was no way to escape this. It all makes sense now.
Yes. But you've written several books on this stuff, and this latest one, Wicked Strange, Your Guide to Ghosts, Monsters, Oddities, and Urban Legends from New England. Another great collection of stories here. And I would just like to ask about a couple. Again, you cover just the New England states. Now, my mother just recently moved to Cranston, Rhode Island. And there's a pretty scary story in there about Cranston. To me, Rhode Island might be the scariest, and Maine a close second. But for some reason, Rhode Island has this scariness about it to me. And so it's the Cranston's Headless Corpse.
Right. Yeah. So you've probably heard the term ghoul, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think today we think of ghouls as like ghosts or monsters, but a ghoul for the longest time was a grave robber, a living person who would go and rob a grave. And in Cranston, the old Cranston Hospital was a place for people that just couldn't take care of themselves, and whether it was mental disabilities, physical disabilities, or what have you. And when those folks died, if no family was around to claim them, they were buried in a grave with just a number. And there's a mass grave out there. And so one day what happened was a gentleman had passed away, and a year or so later, his sister came along and said, I want to claim his body. I'd like to exhume it and bring it to our family grave, which is totally okay and her right to do. And the superintendent approved it, of course, at her expense, no problem. And when they dug up the grave, her brother had no head. And the best they can figure out is that the casket had been busted open at the very top. And what these ghouls used to do is they would take like a giant fish hook, they'd dig really quick a small square hole, crack open the head of the casket, stick the fish hook under the neck, tie it to a rope to a horse, and then have the horse yank the body out all broken, so they could either sell it to the medical community or to a college for dissection, or do God knows what else with it. And what they suspect is with this poor gentleman, his head just popped off and the body stayed underground, and it was just too much trouble to keep digging, so they took the head and just buried the rest.
Wow. But now, about what time did this happen? like time
About
period?
10 o'clock at night.
No, yeah, all right.
This was 1883.
Okay, so yeah, and there was a lot of money to be had.
Well, right.
Yeah, not just the bodies, but sometimes there was jewelry or there were other things in there.
If not at this hospital though. These were not rich people. They were poor,
Oh,
so they
that's
wouldn't.
true,
I mean,
yeah.
they wouldn't have had like jewelry. If they did have jewelry, I'm sure it was stolen before they were buried. So,
Wow.
yeah. So this was just one of those horrible things that was. They were either trying to study someone who had mental problems, and maybe all they wanted was the brain, and they got it. So yeah, it's brutal stuff. And I'd love to tell you this is the only case of a ghoul ripping a body out of the ground, but nope, that's the only case I found in Cranston.
Yeah, right. It's just Cranston. I can't wait to tell my mother, hey, you moved into a great town. You hear about the headless corpse? Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for Natick, Mom.
Yeah. That's what you get for making me live in a haunted house. What about the devil's baked beans in New Hampshire? You know, I'm like a food guy, so
Yeah, of course.
I find that all very fascinating. What is that one all about?
So in Lyndeborough, New Hampshire, there's a place called Purgatory Falls, and it's a pretty little spot. And in the rock is this giant depression. You could literally stand in it. It would probably be up to your chest, and it's like a giant bathtub. And next to it is like this little like triangular depression, and it looks very strange. It was clearly the rock wasn't formed that way. It was created that way, or it came to be after. And the story goes that a dashing gentleman had wandered into town long ago and attended the church service and invited the ministers, who were just local farmers who were asked to be ministers because they couldn't afford a full-time one. And he invited them to come to a bean supper at the falls. And, of course, ministers can't resist baked beans, so
Right.
they went. And the story goes, when they got there, they fell into this trance. And that's when this dashing gentleman revealed that he was the devil. He was stirring these beans in a cauldron that was heated from the fires of hell. But all of a sudden, the rock turned molten. The cauldron started to sink in. His foot started to sink in. He screamed, the pot explodes, beans are everywhere. And all that's left is his cloven footprint, the giant cauldron where his beans were, and the story.
Oh, my God. You know what? I'd take the devil's baked beans. I'm just a big fan. I'm a big fan of both. You know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, the brown sugar, the molasses, he knows how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Yes, it's great little stories like that. Every town's got at least one.
But the thing about this one that I love is that you could say, like, that's ridiculous. And then I could take you there and go ahead, stand in it. Like, clearly this was formed somehow. The rock, this was not here, a million years ago. This thing formed. And you can look at it and go, well, yeah, but you can see it. We have a photo of it. You can see it in the book, right? It's just like, there it is.
Yeah, you get some great photos in the book. And the book is also, we did this. Do you still put out the calendars?
So, yeah, the calendars with my photographer buddy, Frank Grace, who did all the photos for the book. He and I have been doing this Haunted New England calendar for 12 years now. We just had our newest one, the 26th version, come out a week ago. And so, yeah, we've been doing that calendar for 12 consecutive years. And that was a big part of what led to us doing the book together. It was just, I collect all these weird stories. He is an amazing photographer, so it was cool to partner up with him for the project.
Because we used that calendar during my family during COVID to go and travel to places that were in the calendar. And so far, me, my wife, my daughter have all been going through this book and folding over pages of places we want to go to, and the baked bean places is definitely one of those. But I'm glad you told me there's no actual baked beans there. I was a little excited.
You can bring your own.
Yeah, I'll bring my own, and we'll boil them up in there, and I'll throw the family in.
Perfect.
But you've got other stuff in here, like New Haven, Connecticut is arguably the birthplace of the hamburger, and so you've got other stuff in there, and then you do touch on Worcester. You talk about Harvey Ball and the smiley face. So they're not all ghouls and decapitated heads and devil's beans. There's some other interesting stuff in here too.
Anything that sticks out. We did roadside oddities, headstones, and a cemetery safari. So we covered some weird headstones in all of the 6 states.
So there's a lot of great, not just scary, but really interesting stuff here about New England. And that's how I use your books and calendars, Jeff. It's like, let's go on a road trip and let's head out to, this is a good one. I encourage everyone to travel out to the Berkshires to the town of Ripton.
Yes.
and to explore Ripton. It's a very beautiful place in Berkshire County.
I have a summer home there.
Yes, yeah. I believe there is also a blimp factory in Ripton, the only one in Massachusetts.
Right.
That may be my favorite story in this book, and it's all built on the mistrust of people that live in Western and I guess Central Mass of people that live in Eastern Mass, because it has to do with just being ignored by the people at the State House in Boston.
So years ago, in 2008, I had a book come out called Weird Massachusetts. And one of my gags when I would talk about the live show is, why do people from Massachusetts drop their R's? Tell the God in a pock the car and stuff. And I was out in the Berkshires, and I was telling that story. And someone came up to me afterward, kind of indignant, and said, you might notice we use our R's out here in Western Massachusetts. And there's a reason for that. We might as well be a different state. We're not part of Boston. The Boston doesn't pay any attention to us. The elected officials don't even campaign out here. They just stay in like the 495 loop, and that's it. And there is this disgust, like we are just literally forgotten. Ripton is a shining example of what can be done.
Yeah.
when you're clever, and the folks in Ripton, just we have to tip our hats to them, because they really stuck it to the man back in the 80s and once again in the 90s.
It's one of the greatest pranks ever executed in the Commonwealth, for sure.
And I'd love to tell you it couldn't happen again, but it absolutely could.
Yeah, it's twice already. Fool me once. And it's unbelievable. But that's my favorite. So if you go and pick up Wicked Strange from Jeff Belanger, definitely check out the story about Ripton, Massachusetts. It's my favorite one in there. It's great. Now you're a guy who goes out on tour. You're a great storyteller, and you're coming to Worcester, I think, next Wednesday the 24th. You'll be at Preservation Worcester. Are there any tickets left for that?
I just heard the other day it is sold out. But you can always contact them, because maybe someone's trying to free one up or whatever, or I don't know. But ask. But last I heard it was sold out.
And then, is there any other place close by that you're going to be speaking?
Yeah, October 1st, I'll be in Millbury at the Asa Waters Mansion. And
nice place.
Yeah, so there's a tent. They have this really nice tent on the ground. We'll be out there. It's sponsored by the Millbury Public Library. There are still tickets available for that. You just got to contact the library to arrange it. And I'll be doing a whole show out there as well.
That's nice. And then people can keep track of where you are at your website. Is that still jeffbelanger.com?
.com.
Awesome.
That's it.
And then you have a zine out. You have an old school zine that you just started up a few months ago. And it's kind of like, how to explain what a zine is, because I'm sure there's people listening who haven't heard that word since the 80s or have no idea what it is. But it's kind of like a newsletter, right?
Yeah,
it's just
it's like a
form.
Mini magazine, right? It's like a tiny magazine. It's and so it's a full color glossy publication. I started in all this weirdness back in the early '90s in zines. I loved it.
Yeah,
it was a time when media was consolidating, and there were only a few newspaper companies, only a few radio companies, a few TV networks, and zines. All of a sudden, desktop publishing made it possible for people to put the word out independently. Some of them were literally typed on a typewriter, photocopied, and stapled in the corner.
Yes, I have some of those still.
Right.
Yeah.
But we had a voice. We had an independent voice. And then the web came along, and we were like, oh, this is great. $100 a year for hosting and unlimited publishing. But now the web's controlled by like 8 different billionaires, and so I'm kind of like, you know what? I think the independent spirit of like the zine is ready for a comeback. And so each month is by a different author, and I cover weird stories. This is more global though. So like I did a zine on the Bridgewater Triangle. We've had ghosts of Colorado. We've got all kinds of weirdness. But each month is a different author, one story. And it's called Shadow Zine, and I'm just kind of like, all right, maybe the only direction left to go is backward here in media, because as we were talking earlier before we went live, the media is moving through quicksand. We don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow, but I think people are going to start to want something real again, and something they can hold, and something that's tangible, and so thank goodness for local radio. Thank goodness for local publications and people that are actually doing stuff.
And you can't hack into a zine.
Nope.
You can't hack into it. Yeah. That's
Once
awesome.
you have typos or whatever, if it's in your hand, you've got it forever.
Right. Right. Well, Jeff, the new book is great. It's Wicked Strange, Your Guide to Ghosts, Monsters, Oddities, and Urban Legends from New England. Jeff is a great storyteller, and Frank Grace has some really great pictures in here as well. Really beautiful stuff. And go to jeffbelanger.com to see where Jeff is speaking next. This is your busy time of year. Halloween is like your Super Bowl, your Christmas, Thanksgiving, Memorial Day, 4th of July, all rolled into one.
Yeah, I've got 40 dates between now and December.
Wow.
So I'll be all over New England for the next couple of months.
Do you even venture near Salem around Halloween? My whole thing is because I have relatives like, hey, we're thinking of coming up there and we're going to go to Salem for Halloween. I'm like, then I don't want to be anywhere near you.
Yeah, let me know how it was.
Yeah, because that's just crazy. The best time to go to Salem is in July. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and that weirdness is there year round, and I'm totally with you. I've got friends in Salem, and I'm just like, hey, I'll see you in November. Can't wait.
Yeah. These ghosts and ghouls, they're not seasonal in Salem.
No.
Yeah. They're out there every day. So support them in the off season because they need that help.
Yeah. So see you in November in Salem.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, Jeff, always a pleasure talking to you. Looking forward to seeing you at Preservation Worcester next Wednesday. Like Jeff said, check ahead to see if there's any tickets left for that. But thanks again, man. Appreciate it. And the book is great.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.